You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm your host, Hunter Hodes. You can follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins. And of course, thank you so much for making the Locked On Penguins podcast your first listen of the day. The listenership this month is already up 35% compared to where we were at the early December. So that definitely probably coincides with how the team is doing. But I'm just glad that the content is crushing it this month. That's for sure. Special episode today. We have Doug Glattke here of the Forechecking TV. He just had his podcast episode today with one of the Nicks from the Nick and Nick show. Nick Berlansky, of course, that is. Doug, how we doing, man?
First of all, thank you for having me on. And with how I'm doing, I'll be honest with you, man. With how the team's doing, I'm just living my best life right now. Like, I am just straight vibing.
It's a fun time, 10 in a row. They haven't done this in quite a long time. It's tied for the fifth longest winning streak in franchise history. Don't think they'll reach 17, but that would be pretty cool if they did. But we could start at so many places. I'll probably start with Kris Letang. This is a Norris caliber season, except for the fact that Adam Fox, Victor Hedman, and Cale Makar exist because they've been even better than him this year. And that's no slouch. Those are three of the best defensemen in the league. Devon Taves has been awesome. But outside of those three or four, no one's been as good as 58. No, this player is not made of glass, as I've heard before from some weird people on social media, message boards, radio, live streams. Don't know where that started. He's been fully healthy the last 3 years, was magnificent last year. And at both ends of the rink, honestly, Doug, this is probably the best hockey I've seen Kris Letang play in 6 years.
Definitely. I'll go as far back as, this might be the best hockey that he's played since he's had the stroke. There's just something about it. I feel like he simplified his game a little bit. You've heard Mike Sullivan talk about it in some of the post-game press conferences where he's been working with him on just letting him be more cerebral with it and having him pick up on when there's a chance to be made rather than just forcing it. And I feel like that's caused the point production to spike up a little bit more than what we're used to with him. And, he's been just a revelation on the back end amongst several other guys that have just been absolutely crushing it. We could say similar things on a more reduced scale with Matheson and Ruhwedel. They've been unreal too, but like you said about the Kris Letang thing leading into it, also just want to say he should not be traded yet, as we begin to welcome in some of our Steelers fans back into the fan base.
It's a great point because the Steelers season is most likely going to end on Sunday. For more on the Steelers, you can go check out Chris Carter. He does a magnificent job with Locked On Steelers and DK and everyone. But yes, a lot more people are going to start to watch this team. I've been telling, the listeners on here, on my social media pages, wherever, on the YouTube page as well. This is one hell of a hockey team, and I think more people in the city should start paying attention to it. Letang, though, he's been on the ice for 52% of the shot attempts for. This is via 5v5 for the Penguins. 60% of the actual goals for this season. Expected goals for percentage is at 55.7%. He's been on the ice for 56% of the scoring chances, 55% of the high danger chances. It is ridiculous what he's been doing, both ends of the rink. And, that answer he gave DK after the game against Philadelphia, he's in another world right now. And Doug, I wanted to get your thoughts on this as well. My contract, if they can somehow get him below 7, be nice. But the way he's playing right now, might have to go 4 times 8 if you want to keep him. And honestly, I'll give him whatever he wants. He's earned the right to asked for almost whatever. I mean, maybe not 9 or 10 million over here. That's a little much, but he's a core player. I'm not here to entertain trading him or letting him walk or, you can get a lot back for him. I don't really give a crap about that kind of stuff. I mean, you're not going to get back equal value. And you take him off this team, he leaves via free agency. There's no one there that can replace what he does. So just what would be your ideal contract, you thinking?
I mean, I think you could do 4 or 5 and try to work him in between the $6.5 to $7 million threshold. And honestly, like, there's no reason to hardball him. I think that everybody in this fan base knows that the team goes as he goes.
Well, outside of Pence Chronicles over here, but we don't talk about him.
Yeah, we don't talk about him. But like, the team goes as he goes. There's not a single defenseman in the pipeline right now that can replace what he does. And, that's the biggest thing. There's not a single defenseman in the pipeline that can replace what he does. And if you're going to look on the open market to replace him, you're going to end up paying a guy 10 or 11 million. And the team doesn't have the ability to do that. And if it were me right now going into the offseason, he's the number one on the highest priority list out of all the free agents you have.
I think I'd agree with that. I love Geno. What he's done here is remarkable. He's easily a top, 30 player of all time. Doug, I think that's probably fair to say. I know there's a lot of great players that have played, but not a lot have accomplished what he has accomplished and put up the points that he is and all that stuff. But he's probably next in line after that. He's just Letang just means. It's weird to say that he means more to the team than Geno, but it actually it's not that really far fetched of a hot take. They both mean so much, but you take Kris Letang off the team and you take Evgeni Malkin off the team. I think they would feel the difference more with Letang than Malkin. Good Lord. With that, apologies. There's some background noise, anyways. But would you say that's accurate?
I would say that's accurate, and I think that it's probably best that we leave it at that because there's really no way to describe it outside of the team just plays better or the team is more explosive when Letang's in the lineup. I think we could dive into a Pandora's box of why we think this, but I feel like if we do that, that could make us look bad, potentially. So, honestly, I think Letang's the highest priority guy. Saw a tweet last night from one of my favorite fellows on Penn's Twitter, Chad Nolan. Shout out to him.
Great show over there with him and Ed. Can't recommend them enough.
Yeah, fantastic. Absolutely fantastic stuff. He's on pace for 69 assists, which is beyond nice.
70. He's on pace for 73 points, which is I think that's a career high for him. If he hits that.
I think his career high is between 65 and 68. I just don't remember the exact number.
It's right around there. It's close to 70, if I recall correctly. Yeah. But it's not. If he would hit 73, that would be the most he's ever had. And I've been saying on here, Doug, the older he gets, the better he plays.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the crazy thing.
I think a lot of that is because he has to simplify his game in order to keep up. And that's perfectly fine with me. Do whatever you got to do because it's working. And it's really, really working. And I think a lot of credit is probably due in part to Todd Reirden being back in the organization and, being able to work with him because they had such a great relationship during Reirden's first stint in Pittsburgh. And he had him looking like one of those upper echelon, top tier Norris caliber defensemen. And then he left. And then things got a little bleak for a couple years, but now we're back and the train's rolling.
They have a very close relationship. It sounds like just from what I read and everything. So I'm not actually surprised that he's playing some of his best hockey right now. Well, we'll get to another player coming up after this commercial break, Doug, as Geno is also nearing his return, as well as Jeff Carter. Are going to get into what the lines could look like, all that stuff. If my beautiful Built Bar copy could load up right here, that would be amazing. We're just going to ad-lib it, and we're going to for some reason it is in the owner's. I'm going to have to edit this out, but you know what? For some reason it is in, I don't know. Okay, there we go. I think we got it. Well, maybe not. For some reason my the talking points are just, I've never had this problem before. Okay. We officially have it now. Well, that's gonna be some fun podcast radio right there. It is the new year, so that means New Year's resolutions. If yours is about getting fit or eating healthier, make sure you include Built Bar in your plan. Built Bar is the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, maybe even better than a candy bar as well. Built Bar makes it easier for you to stick to your resolution because it tastes so good, you'll want to eat it. Unlike other protein bars, which can be chalky or waxy or taste like a chemical spill, you want to eat healthy, but it just gets so boring. By week 3, maybe you're like, this is just not worth it. Where's the chocolate? That's the thing, though. Built Bars are covered in 100% chocolate. Most of them have 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 grams of net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Even if you're not a huge fan of working out, you can at least eat something that tastes good and is good for you. That way, when you enjoy a delicious Built Bar, you can almost count it as a workout. Go to built.com, use promo code LOCKED15, and get 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. Okay, we're back after that. At first, very awkward Built Bar read, but sometimes that happens with radio. I was glad I was able to make a copy of it as it was saying on my screen. We're back here. I'm Hunter Hodes. Doug Glattke is also with me here. Evgeni Malkin, he is also nearing his return. No, he does not need to be traded. No, they will not get equal value back for him if he does somehow get traded. And no, he's not going to mess up the team structure, as we have seen from weird radio talking heads in the city of Pittsburgh. Mainly just one, but I said I called him a bigot. I called him an idiot yesterday on the show here. Everyone knows who that is, I think, at this point. I think if you have that same opinion, maybe hockey is just not the sport for you. But Geno is going to be making his return in the next day or a few days, and I'm excited, man. He brings so much to this lineup. The guy played on a bum knee in the playoffs, put up 6 points in 4 games, and he brings an element to this team that is unquestioned. So with that, Doug, who would you put next to him? Kapanen with Rodriguez, Heinen with Rodriguez? What are you thinking at right now, as the Penguins have quite a bit of options?
So I have 2 ideas that I like. Now, before we start this, we preface the Teddy Bluger line doesn't get touched. Sid's line doesn't get touched. We're tinkering with the second and the third lines now. I want to see Rodriguez with Malkin and Kapanen. I think that would give them the perfect combination of a great play distributor who's also very defensively sound, and would give both Malkin and Kapanen more freedom to do what they do best, and that is generate offense and just be pure shooters. But that being said, I also like the idea of Evan Rodriguez just playing third line center and keeping that Zucker, Rodriguez, Kapanen line that we had going early in the year with all the COVID outbreaks and the injuries. That is one of the best lines at 5v5 this year, and that had Kapanen playing some of his best hockey as a Penguin. But I think the more logical one is to run Rodriguez, Malkin, and Kapanen, and then let your third line be a line that I really, really liked in a small sample size this year, which is Jason Zucker, Jeff Carter, and Danton Heinen. Those 3 were crushing it together, especially going into that Seattle game before Jake went down and they had to mix all the lines again. I really, really, really liked what they were doing, and I really liked what they were getting out of Danton Heinen specifically during that little stretch where those 3 were together. But honestly, Hunter, I'm just going to come out and say it. This might be the deepest forward group and most talented forward group that they've had since the 16 Cup run.
It's up there. You can 100% make that comparison. This is the deepest team they've had at least since 2017. Doug, I thought last year's team was deep, and rightfully so. They could roll 4 lines with anyone, and the fourth line they had was one of the best fourth lines in the league. I'd argue this year's fourth line is even better, especially with how Brock is scoring right now. And I said this the other day, Doug. Credit to Ron Hextall for finding Brock McGinn, and then for Mike Sullivan to plug him into that same Tanev role and to get equal, or in my opinion, better results than what they got last season out of that fourth line. I know that's going to make some of the Tanev fans a little upset. You know what? Whatever. I wish him the best with his recovery from his ACL, by the way. That's an awful injury. But I still think this year's fourth line is a lot better. I think you have to have Rodriguez with Kapanen no matter the cost.
Yes.
It's just Kapanen, for as much as he has struggled this year, he brings out the best in Rodriguez. They have great numbers together. I think right now, or for a lot of this year, they've been running at 80 to 90% expected goals. You saw Kapanen's pass last night to Spring Rodriguez when he just caught a hot soul to another dimension. That's just the chemistry that these two players have. And, if you want to put Evgeni Malkin on that, center them, that's fine by me. Now, Doug, do you think Carter could be the player that moves to wing? I've seen a lot of that thrown around as well.
I mean, if you do what I alluded to earlier of having Rodriguez play center and him center Zucker and Kapanen, that makes your second line Danton Heinen, Evgeni Malkin, and Jeff Carter. Which is something that we saw teased in like a little practice lineup. I saw that those three were doing line rushes together, and that was right before Carter went back into the COVID protocol. So who knows? Maybe we're gearing up for that. But like I said earlier, I really want to see the Rodriguez, Malkin, Kapanen line before we go to that, because Rodriguez has earned a top 6 role. He's earned that. I think I also like the idea of him playing left wing too, because that opens up the one-timer side. And with the confidence that dude has right now, just shooting the puck, it's literally, some nights you see some shades of Ovi, and some nights you see him running the half wall, and you're basically you're just holy shit, this guy's running it like Phil Kessel right now.
Yeah, the shot that he had against the Blues, that was Ovi. We've seen that many times just because he's the greatest goal scorer to ever live. But it was fun to see that shot kind of go in the Penguins' favor. It's wow, I'm not watching Alex Ovechkin just beat Marc-Andre Fleury 5,000 times from that spot, or every other goalie he's done it to throughout his career, just because that's his office. Now, Doug, do you think Rodriguez should stay on the top power play when Malkin comes back? And do you think Brian Rush should come off of it? Because I think that's where I'm leaning right now.
We talked about this earlier today, and I think that's where I'm leaning as well. It's just a matter of, do you keep Rodriguez up top on the power play and let Malkin play that bumper? They might have to completely rethread their power play. If they keep Malkin up there, they might have to completely rethread how they do it in order to keep Rodriguez up top.
Rodriguez's spot, if I'm not mistaken, he usually runs one of the points, but he'll slide down there and take shots from there.
So why not just keep him there?
Yeah.
Rather than, because here's my thing, Jake has his own little office going right now in the front of the net. He's really crushing it there. We all know that Sid loves working it down low. Tanger's going to QB it, and just let Erod and Geno be the guys that just fire it.
Geno loves to fire. Tanger will give him the puck on the other circle, and he'll just rip what we call Geno bombs from there.
Yeah.
All the time. So I would be fine with that. And I like what Brian Russ has been doing. He has 7 goals in his last 3 games. He'll still get good minutes on the second power play unit, and he is a part of one of the best first lines in hockey right now. So I don't really think he should be too upset, considering he's still going to play quite a few minutes every game. And if Rodriguez goes a little cold, what's the worst that can happen? Mike Sullivan will just put Brian Russ back on the top power play, And at the end of the day, you still got two really strong units, I think, man.
Yeah. And putting Rust on the second unit would also be kind of nice because it would be cool to have it not be burning out one of your top 6 forwards on the top power play unit.
Yeah.
So, like, let's say they keep the entire top power play unit out for like the entire 2 minutes and they're gassed. They could throw Rust out there for a shift with Danton Heinen and Jeff Carter.
I agree.
And Rust would be able to hold his head above water for that and potentially, they could potentially generate offense doing that, That's the nice thing about having a guy like Brian Rust who can, in my opinion, play on all 4 lines and still be uberly productive.
Yeah, Brian Rust has been ridiculous the last 3 years. 27 goals 2 years ago, 22 last year. On pace for another 20 this year. I never want to hear that player is like just a pure depth player ever again. I mean, he's been awesome ever since. He was a one-trick pony, but the way he was able to develop his game into what he is now, just rock solid. And he's gonna, whether it's the Penguins or someone else, Doug, money talks this offseason. He's going to get a king's ransom, I think, from some team. Still have a little more to get to for this episode. We're going to preview the game against Dallas and just, looking forward, how Doug feels about the team overall for the season. But before we do that, BetOnline would like to wish you a happy new betting year as we continue our march to the NFL playoffs and beyond. BetOnline remains the number one spot for all the best sports wagering action for 2022. From football, basketball, hockey, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for 2022. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all of your favorite sports. And remember, you can sign up today and receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit with the promo code of Locked On. That is BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, welcome back here to this episode of Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Of course, I'm still with Doug Glattke. Doug, big game against Dallas. The Stars actually won a wild one on Thursday against the Panthers. That was just a back and forth affair. Dallas's lines, the Penguins played them earlier on in the season, lost in the shootout when they were having their really bad shootout struggles. Hints with Pavelski and Robertson on the top line. Jamie Benn, who famously does not go down. Tyler Seguin with Denis Gurianov. And yes, I had to do the Jamie Benn. To the Jamie Benn because, well, that is my gamer tag on Xbox Live, and I have no shame in saying that on this podcast. Radulov is on the third line, which is interesting because he's usually one of their best players. Kivi Ransa is down there, Radek Faksa, Luke Glendening, who is apparently still in the NHL, and then Michael Raffel, former Flyer, John Klingberg with Ryan Suter. That's one of the best top pairings in hockey. And just so you would know, apparently according to David Pagnotta, John Klingberg has asked out of Dallas. I think it might be due to contracts. If Kris Letang were to somehow walk, that's the guy I would pay. Though I think he's probably going to be looking for a bit more money than Letang is, that's for sure, at least in my opinion. Heiskanen with Esa Lindell on the second pairing. And then goaltending-wise, Jake Ottinger is going to start for Dallas in that game. It will not be Braden Holtby, who had a return to 2016 the last time these two teams played. Overall, Dallas, middle of the pack underlying numbers, 50% of the expected goals, 47% of the actual goals, 48% of the shot attempts. What do you make of this game, you think, Doug, just by going up against a Dallas team that, they're still in it and, they're only a couple years removed from the final, but just been hard to be consistent this year. They've just coming off a 2-week layoff due to COVID.
I think that this is a good challenge for the Penguins in the sense of Dallas was so hot going into their COVID shutdown. And obviously having that wild win against the Panthers, that's nothing to sneeze at. And, I'm a goalie guy. Like I like my goalies. Jake Ottinger, in my opinion, is very, very underrated. He has a 7-2-2 record this year, and he has a .922 save percentage. That's pretty solid for a young goalie of his caliber. And I mean, he's single-handedly chased Anton Khudobin out of the picture there in Dallas.
That's a backup option for Casey Smith if they want to go that route. But keep going.
100%. But yeah, I think this is another good measuring stick game for the Penguins, and the fact that it's also at 2 o'clock is also going to be a challenge for them as well because they never really play well in afternoon games. But
except last week.
Yeah, except last week. That was an awesome game to be at, by the way. I was there. It was great. But yeah, I think that this is going to be a good kickoff to the Western road trip that they're on. There's a couple good games on the road trip that are going to be important to follow and watch as we slowly start to dictate, like, okay, is this for real, or are they just on this good of a hot streak?
Yep. I mean, that's a great point. This is a big road trip for them. Again, Dallas, the full California trip. Vegas is going to be one hell of a game. They are one of the best teams in the league again this year, and they still have yet to get Jack Eichel back. Yeah, I think he's expected to come back in a month or two from his surgery. So a deep team is going to get that much deeper. I'm excited to watch them. I know that Stars play a really boring brand of hockey. That game was a snooze fest the last time those two teams played. Braden Holtby was really good, but I mean, they played that third period. I remember this, Doug. It was almost just like, okay, we're two teams from the opposite conferences. The game is tied. Let's just both get a point, and then let's see where it goes from there. I would not be surprised if the same thing happened tomorrow, just because, with where the Stars are at the standings, the Penguins still a few points out of first. But I'm excited to watch that one, 2:00 start time on NHL Network and ESPN Plus if you have that subscription. Obviously, it'll be on AT&T Sportsnet in Pittsburgh. Last one I got for you, though, Doug, before I let you go. With the 10-game winning streak, I'm of the opinion now, why not them? Just because I think they can speed bag a lot of these teams in this conference, though it's deep. Florida would be a heck of a fight. Tampa Bay, obviously, Washington, New York, Carolina. I've started to get a little bit of 2016 and 2017 vibes ever so slowly. How are you feeling overall?
I'll be honest with you, man, and I'm not trying to, force the ball downfield in a sense, but like I'm starting to get those feelings again. You get those reminders of like things that you saw in 17 specifically for me, where okay, like they're playing a random team who's low in the standings. Rather than undermining them, they're just going to absolutely destroy them.
Yeah.
And that's important. Some of the depth guys that they've had killing it for them, like the Brian Boyle shorty, just basically for fun at that point in that game, remind me of some stuff that Matt Cullen would do back in 16 and 17. And honestly, like I said to you, this forward group that they have right now, I would put it up against any forward group in the Crosby Malkin era.
Yeah.
In my opinion, like they're that good. And you got to address the backup goaltending situation sooner rather than later, because I would hate for them to have to keep riding Jari as much as they are and him potentially burn out.
God forbid he on wood here gets hurt. God forbid.
Knock on wood. God forbid that happens, because there's nothing else. Mike Sullivan, you can tell Mike Sullivan doesn't trust Casey DeSmith, and you could tell that he doesn't really trust Louis Domingue either. So
yeah,
we're basically down to the point of correct that one single issue you have with your entire roster through a trade. And if you do it well, we're cooking with gas, because everything's going right for them. Evan Rodriguez having a coming out party was so important for the team's success. And, if he's able to get Kapanen going again, this team is going to be a runaway train, and it's going to be very, very hard to beat them every single night. And it's going to be very hard to beat them in a 7-game playoff series. And like you alluded to, it's pretty much Florida and Tampa Bay right now, and that's it. Those are the only teams that I'm truly worried about. And I don't want to old takes expose myself, but like that's just how I feel.
Well, you could, especially if the Capitals and the Hurricanes keep playing well. The Rangers are good, but their underlying numbers are really bad, and I think they will honestly win in spite of Shesterkin and their 3 best players. That's just my opinion, though.
Yeah, Igor's just been that good this year.
Oh yeah,
he's like on another planet.
that he'll be probably honestly a Vezina Trophy finalist at the end of the year with how he's going.
Okay.
Tristan's right there though, probably top 5, top 6. You can't argue against it, but the big measuring stick. How's it going to be come April? And if he gives them this level of goaltending, good luck. He's been fantastic all year. But Doug, where can everyone find you on the socials, and what you got planned coming up for content wise?
All right. Be sure to follow my personal Twitter at Doug_Glattke. And then follow Forechecking TV on Twitter at Forechecking TV. And in terms of like content, my goal for 2022 is just to get more guests. I have like a small circle of people that I'm really comfortable with having on and being able to have a conversation with. But I want to challenge myself more to like reach out to other people and see if I can get them on to offer their viewpoints that I really like and respect as well. So that's really what my game plan is, at least for the early part of 2022.
I can't wait to see it, man. I'm sure you're going to get plenty of great guests on your show. We're back on Monday. Hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Let's see what the Steelers can do. If the Jaguars win, maybe I'll go out and get a Trevor Lawrence jersey. That's for sure. Or just a Trevor Lawrence tattoo. Who knows? But Penguins are back on action 2:00 Saturday. They're then off until Tuesday when they go to California. Make sure you have your coffee for those games in case you're just an early bird, but late night owl over here. I love those games. But thank you all so much for listening to this episode, and we will be back on Monday.